This painting became one of Australia's national icons because it exposed a fear the settlers could not escape. What if this land would never truly accept them? In the late 19th century, thousands of British settlers tried to build a new identity in Australia. But there was one problem. The deeper they moved into the bush, the more alien the country felt. And one small painting revealed that fear with disturbing honesty. In 1886, Australian painter Frederick McCubbin created a quiet and deeply unsettling work called Lost. At first glance, almost nothing seems to happen. A little girl stands alone in the bush. Her back faces the viewer. The vegetation surrounds her completely. No screaming. No dramatic movement. No rescue. Only silence. And that silence is what makes the image disturbing. Because the child looks impossibly small against the Australian landscape. The bush does not appear evil. It appears indifferent. The heat feels heavy. The trees seem endless. A child could vanish there within minutes. And for colonial Australians, that was far more frightening. To understand why this image affected people so deeply, we need to understand Australia itself during the late 1800s. Most settlers were either immigrants from Britain or children of immigrants. They had left Europe behind, but Australia still did not feel fully like home. The climate was harsher. The distances were immense. The light looked strange. Even the trees seemed unfamiliar. The silence of the bush felt endless. The summer heat could become unbearable. Many settlers no longer felt fully British, but they did not feel Australian either. Too far from Britain to remain British. Too disconnected from the land to truly belong to Australia. And the bush became the symbol of that anxiety. Children getting lost in the wilderness was a real fear in colonial society. Newspapers frequently reported these stories. Some children survived. Others never returned. But beneath the practical fear was something deeper. If a child born in Australia could disappear into the land so completely, what did that say about the settlers themselves? But the strangest part is this. The painters were not trying to comfort Australians. They were teaching them how to emotionally survive the land. These painters were among the first artists to show Australia as it actually felt to live there. Earlier, colonial artists often painted the landscape as if it were England. Soft forests, comfortable light, controlled nature. But the Heidelberg painters did something radical. They painted Australia as Australians actually experienced it. The dry heat, the harsh sunlight, the endless distances, the feeling that the land could swallow you whole. In McCubbin's work, the bush is not merely scenery. The bush stops feeling like a place and starts feeling like something watching them. The little girl in Lost is not only physically lost. She reflected a society trying to survive in a land that still felt unfamiliar. That is why the painting feels strangely modern even today. It is really a painting about the fear of not belonging. Paradoxically, Australians embraced this image. A painting about fear became part of the national identity. Why? Because it expressed something honest. Many national myths are built around victory, heroism, and certainty. But Australia's early cultural identity was also shaped by vulnerability. The settlers depended on the land for survival, yet feared it at the same time. And that contradiction created a powerful emotional tension. The Heidelberg painters transformed that tension into art. They helped Australians see themselves as people hardened by distance, heat, and isolation. In other words, the painting did not simply show a lost child. It helped create the emotional story Australians told themselves about who they were. But there is another layer to this story, one that makes the painting even more unsettling today. The bush in these paintings often appears empty, untouched, silent, waiting for settlers to belong to it. But the land was never empty. For thousands of years, Aboriginal Australians already had a deep connection to this land. Yet in much of the Heidelberg School's imagery, Indigenous presence is almost entirely absent. That absence matters. Because the colonial fear of not belonging existed alongside the reality that others already belonged there. And suddenly the painting changes again. The child is no longer only lost in nature. She is trapped inside a story the settlers themselves did not fully understand. A society trying to create a home while refusing to fully confront the history beneath its feet. More than a century later, Lost still feels emotionally powerful because it captures something universal. The fear of entering a place that does not recognize you. The fear of building an identity on uncertain ground. The fear of not knowing where you truly belong. And perhaps that is why the painting survived. Not because it offered answers, but because it revealed a fear people rarely admitted out loud. Sometimes the greatest fear is not getting lost in the landscape, but realizing the landscape may never fully accept you.